Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you'll be listening to a session that I actually did for a gentleman that had a fear of choking. And he'd had this for a very long period of time, and he thought it might be related to a time when he was a child and he swallowed a chocolate egg and got it stuck in his throat. And it's highly likely that as a young child, that choking element caused a lot of concern for the people around him, was probably very traumatic, and probably led to this kind of feeling of worrying about eating. Now, what was interesting about this gentleman is that he was only really anxious at the idea of eating and potentially vomiting around other people. If he was eating in private, there would be no or low levels of anxiety. And when he was eating in public, he would feel his throat tighten, and he would imagine his throat tightening, and then he would have this kind of feeling of almost words coming from his throat that he shouldn't eat, and he can't eat, and he shouldn't really consume whatever he's consuming. And this led to a feeling of struggling against himself. So in this hypnosis session, what you're going to hear is using an element of disassociation from the part of him that was struggling to eat and associating into this resourceful part. So if he was eating on his own, he was fine. So you'll see how I introduce different variables to interrupt and change the pattern by getting him assuming that he's eating on his own, and then gradually introducing people, but still keeping the resourceful state of how he is when he's eating on his own. I also introduced a metaphor which many men can relate to, and that is the idea of an inability to go to the toilet on a urinal if there's other people around them. So something they can do effortlessly on their own suddenly becomes an issue if there's other men around them. And that had echoes of the sentiment that he had with food, that he could eat completely fine on his own. But if there was people around him, then something naturally and effortlessly easy was then very tricky and difficult. So you'll hear those parallels, and in the discussion before the hypnosis, he could relate to that kind of element of having difficulty going to the urinal, going to the toilet, unless he was alone. So we're tackling two different things here, but the most important thing is this fear of choking, but one acts as a barometer, almost as a pacer for the other change. If you're listening to this and you like the idea of having this audio, but without listening on the podcast, you can get this audio completely free by clicking the link nearby and using the coupon code FREE. And there's lots of other audio sessions on there as well on my website. And if you have any kind of fear of vomiting or choking or any other fears or phobias, there will also be a link nearby to this session where you can book a free 30-minute consultation call with me, so you can work with me one-on-one and explore how that would work. But for now, find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Okay, take a deep breath in, and on the out breath, close your eyes. That's it. And as you breathe in a feeling of resourceful relaxation. And as you exhale, just get a feeling that tension, stress, or worry is leaving your body. That's right. As you breathe in and breathe out, notice that you're able to notice different sounds. Not just the sound of my voice, but perhaps the sound of a breeze going through trees outside the window. Perhaps you can notice the sound of a ticking of a clock. Perhaps you can notice the sound of an air conditioning unit, or perhaps footsteps or voices in rooms not too far away. And the more that you're able to focus on things other than the sound of my voice, the better able my voice is to influence things that you don't even notice. Because so much of what you do is at the unconscious level. You blink thousands of times each day, and rarely is it deliberate. You breathe in, you breathe out, your heart beats, and all these things happen without any direct decision making. There's no conscious involvement. Your brain, your body, your mind just knows how to do certain things. And sometimes the brain thinks it can do something all by itself that doesn't require any thought by you. But sometimes those things aren't helpful. So how do we change something that's automatic? How do we change something that you do without thinking? And as you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to entertain the idea that every time you think of a memory, you are rewriting that memory. Just imagine that if every time you listen to a song, the song itself was being re-recorded, or every single time you experience something new, each time you then thought of that experience, you're creating a slightly different experience. And maybe as a child, you played Chinese whispers, where a chain of children would whisper a phrase, and by the time it got to the end phrase was entirely different to the beginning phrase. And imagine a photocopy of a hillside by the sea. Maybe the first image was a beautiful color picture, and then imagine photocopying that into black and white. Isn't it safe to say that the black and white picture would be different to the color? But then imagine photocopying not the original but the photocopy, and then photocopying the photocopy of the photocopy. Before long, you'd be left with an image that bears no resemblance to that hilltop and that sea. I want you to go back to that image, the colourful image of the hilltop and the sea, and just imagine climbing into that picture so that you are now on the hilltop looking out at the sea. And I want you to imagine that you have prepared a big picnic. Imagine that in this picnic are all of your favourite foods. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to get a sense that here you feel relaxed. Here you feel that you could eat any of this food without any issues. You could drink anything and eat anything, and there would be no problems whatsoever. And if that's true, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And this part of you that has the ability to eat in a completely relaxed and confident way without any stress or issues or anxiety, and you can talk even though you're feeling relaxed, I want you to let me know the name of this part that I'm talking to right now. I'm going to say some words. If any of these words resonate, just nod your head, and then this becomes a useful word to call you while you're in this way of thinking. Relaxed. Confident. At ease. Okay, so we're going to call this the relaxed version of you. Here in this state, you can eat, and I want you to imagine that you've drunk so much water that nearby is just a bush. And I want you to imagine that if you needed to go to the toilet, you could go to the toilet and there'd be no issues whatsoever. And if that's also true because you feel relaxed, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. But I want you to appreciate that right now you don't need to go to the toilet. You're just looking at all this food, knowing that because you're relaxed, you have the ability to eat it. And I want you to imagine choosing some food and imagine what it would be like to eat this food. It doesn't matter what the food is, but just imagine that you can eat it. And then I want you to notice that although you're the only human there, I want you to imagine that there are birds that are watching you. And if you still feel relaxed enough to eat all of this food on this beautiful picnic, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And then I want you to imagine that in addition to maybe some birds looking around, I want you to imagine there are 2 squirrels also watching. Maybe they're on a tree nearby or just on the grass not too far away, and there you are on top of a hill looking out over the ocean with this amazing picnic. And it now dawns on you that you have 2 birds and 2 squirrels watching you as you eat. And if you're still able to enjoy as you eat, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. I want you to imagine that nearby to this amazing hilltop and this amazing view of the sea, that there was a zoo, and some animals escaped from the zoo. And some of them were chimpanzees, and some of them were big gorillas, and maybe other animals as well. And I want you to imagine you see some of these larger animals. You feel safe, you know these animals aren't going to hurt you. But you get a sense that these animals are watching you as you eat. And if you still feel relaxed, just let me know by nodding your head. All these animals are safe animals. They won't cause you any harm whatsoever. They're just curious, seeing a human having a picnic on top of a hill, and if it feels like you can still eat, just let me know. That's right. And then I want you to imagine that there is bulletproof glass separating you from the animals. They're able to see through the glass and see you eating, but they can't get hold or even close to you or your food. I want you to increase the number of animals and still realize that you feel so relaxed. Imagine drinking drink, eating food, and then realizing that you need to go to the toilet again. So you just go to that bush, and even though there's animals close by, you realize that animals are used to seeing other animals urinate in public, and it doesn't bother them. Why would it bother you? And if it also feels that you're able to just, in a very relaxed way, go to the toilet if you need to, let me know by nodding your head. That's right. I want you to get a sense that these are physical, biological entities watching you, and yet you can still be relaxed. I want you to imagine that you are hosting an imaginary dinner party. Maybe something like Alice in Wonderland. And on your dinner party, there is a long table. And I want you to imagine that now these animals are joining you for a feast. Except these are animals with human characteristics. eyes that are expressive, even voices, and yet they are still the very animals that you saw watching you through that bulletproof glass. Maybe there's a rabbit that's talking, maybe the squirrel can talk. And I want you to get a sense that you still feel relaxed in this environment. Here at this table, you can eat the food and notice there is no resistance, no tension. You feel relaxed. If anything, you feel like you can enjoy eating the food. And it's a weird experience because not normally do you eat food at a table with talking animals, but here you are. And if it feels that you can eat your food in a completely relaxed way, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And now I want you to get a sense that after the meal is finished, and you've got absolute evidence through your own experience that you finished the meal, I want you to notice that these animals start to unzip their costumes. And actually inside the animals was people that you know, maybe friends, maybe family members. And then it occurs to you that you've just had a very enjoyable meal with people watching you that are humans that just happen to be dressed in animal costumes that were so convincing that you thought you were having a meal with animals. And then you realize that actually you're still a little bit hungry. And I want you to notice how you feel as you reach to just eat a bit more food, knowing that these are the very same people that were watching you anyway. And if you feel that you're able to do that, I want you to grab your hand and imagine that you're putting whatever the food is into your mouth and you're chewing it and swallowing it just as naturally as you would do as if you were completely on your own. And if that felt relaxing and calm and completely okay, even though there were people watching, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. I want you to imagine that this is just your imagination, and your imagination can do magical things. And I want you to recall a recent time that you went to a restaurant and imagine that you're now in this state where you've already eaten in front of people, are now going to that same restaurant. But imagine it's a restaurant and you haven't eaten anything for 2 days, so you're really hungry. Imagine getting there, looking at something you like in the menu, ordering the food, and just scan your mind for any thoughts that you have. And what if those thoughts are, I'm really hungry, I'm looking forward to this food. This food is going to be delicious. Imagine the food arrives and you're there at that restaurant with many people there in the same restaurant. And I want you to imagine eating only half of whatever food you've ordered, not because you can't, but simply because you don't want to eat anymore. So you're starting to eat knowing that you're not going to finish everything, and that is completely okay. And after you've done that, just let me know by nodding your head. I want you to get a sense that when it feels like you have to do something, it creates a different emotional reaction than if you get to or just want to. And you realize that actually eating is an enjoyable thing to do. And because you've unlocked that ability to eat around other people in the same way that you would if you were eating entirely on your own, it now means that you've opened up the possibility of many different interactions with different people while eating. But I want you to get a sense of what would have to happen in order for you to feel anxious. And isn't it the case that you have to mind read what you think other people around the table are thinking about you? If it feels like that's the case, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine you now have a volume switch. A volume switch which means that any thoughts about what other people are thinking, you can turn the volume all the way down, just like pressing mute on a TV screen. And I want you to imagine doing that. Imagine that you're looking around and you're hearing those imaginary thoughts through those imaginary people, and they're saying the kind of things that used to make you feel anxious. Point to where you feel that anxiety. Notice it, and if it's hard to access, don't worry. But just get a sense that you now have the ability to quieten the mind. I want you to imagine that there you are eating, and all the most stressed out thoughts you're imagining coming from the inner dialogue of all these different people, and then just imagine turning that volume switch all the way down. And notice that as the sound of those thoughts disappear, so does the anxiety, which means that you can continue to eat and enjoy that food. And I want you to test it. Imagine that you can hear those annoyed or stressed out thoughts, turn the volume down, and as it goes down, so does any feelings of tension around your throat. And when you've done that, just let me know by nodding your head. I want you to imagine now that you've got a new way of thinking about thinking. And I want you to recall a time when you were 4 years old, perhaps 5, choking on some food. But I want you to imagine that you are going back to that point as if you're watching yourself, just like you're a fly on the wall watching what happened. You can see you there before you picked up whatever the food was. See yourself putting it in your mouth and seeing it get lodged or perhaps choking you. And if you can see that, but imagine seeing it from a different perspective, not in your own body, but seeing it like you're someone else, just let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to think, knowing what you now know, isn't it the case that you wouldn't eat food like that? And therefore, the key lesson to learn is not to avoid eating food around other people. What a ridiculous idea. And you had so many other ridiculous ideas when you were 4 or 5 years old that turned out not to be true. Maybe Father Christmas wasn't real after all. And maybe it wasn't tooth fairies swapping your teeth for coins. So therefore, what else wasn't true back then when you were 4 or 5 years old? The idea that you couldn't eat around people also wasn't true. So allow that belief to disappear and to replace it with a new idea back then. Back then, that actually if you chew your food and you feel relaxed, eating is just enjoyable. I want you to imagine rewinding that 4 or 5 year old version of you that was choking, but installing these new ideas that when you chew your food and you eat in a relaxed way, there is no danger to eating. And when you're convinced that 4 or 5 year old version of you now feels and believes that way, see that child eating the same food, but see that they don't try and do it all in one big gulp. They chew the food. They eat the food slowly. They do it in a relaxed way and notice that there was no choking or emergency. And once you've seen that child do that, just let me know by nodding your head. rewind it all the way to the beginning, and this time step inside that version of you, that small child. Imagine seeing that food, maybe taking the wrapper off, but this time feel that those beliefs are just ingrained within you, that you're going to chew this properly, you're going to eat it slowly, and you're going to be relaxed so you can really enjoy the food. And I want you to imagine eating that same egg. Imagine pulling it up to your mouth, chewing it, eating it slowly, and noticing that there was no panic, there was no choking, there was no danger. And even though there's people watching you, all they did is see a child eat some food in a very healthy, natural, slow way. And once you've done that, let me know by nodding your head. That's right. You are now free from that chain, that burden, a burden that was created when you were a child and didn't serve you at all. And that part that wanted to protect you all the way back then tried to protect you by avoiding you eating in public. But that same part will now protect you by chewing your food properly, helping you to be relaxed and slowing down the speed at which you eat food. And if that part is willing to protect you in that new way, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. I want you to feel like how it feels when you throw a pebble into a pond and you see the ripples going across the surface of that pond to every single part of that pond. We've made a change to a belief, to how you think, to what you do at a particular time in your life, but it doesn't just change it there. Allow those ripples to ripple throughout time, updating every possible experience since then. That when you eat slowly, when you chew your food, but most importantly, when you feel relaxed, just as relaxed as when you're eating on your own. Eating food is enjoyable. It's easy. It feels natural because it is natural. Humans are social creatures. And so much of how humans interact with other creatures of their own species is through sharing food and eating at the same time. And once this ripple throughout time is now updated and adjusted, not just up to the present but in your future as well, I want you to imagine a future event where you would need to eat food around people. Only this time it isn't a need, it isn't a must, it isn't a have to. It's that you get to eat food around other people and enjoy that process, and just imagine watching that version of you. Maybe go to a restaurant or a cafe, order some food, but see how relaxed you look. You can tell from your facial expressions, your body language and your breathing that you're relaxed. And when you're relaxed and you're eating slowly and you're chewing your food, notice that you smile more when you're in these places. And the smiling helps you to feel even more relaxed. See yourself eating the food at whichever pace you want, leaving whatever food you don't want. No guilt, no shame, no worries. And see this version of you that if they ever start thinking that people are thinking about them, they've got that ability to just turn the volume all the way down, removing any of the triggers of anxiety. And once you've seen a future version of you do the very things that you would like to do when it comes to food and being around other people, and when you see yourself do that and do it successfully, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Rewind that exact same situation, but this time step into the body. You're now in the first person. Imagine you're there with other people, choosing something in the menu, but notice there's an absence of inner dialogue. Your throat feels relaxed. You're breathing deeply from the diaphragm. You order the food. You're polite to the waiter or the waitress. the food arrives, and just notice that that part that was trying to protect you by saying stop is now protecting you by making you feel so relaxed, to remind you to chew your food well and to eat slowly. And imagine eating the food slowly, really chewing the food well, not because you have to, but because it releases more flavors and you enjoy the food more. And then imagine eating that food, and the more you eat, the more relaxed you feel, and the more relaxed you feel, the easier it is to eat. But you're still eating slowly, deliberately, chewing well. And then when it gets to the end, just feel that things feel different now. And maybe this one change in your life has had a ripple into a different area of your life. And I want you to imagine, not only have you eaten this big meal, but you drunk a lot too. And then imagine you go to the toilet of that restaurant and you deliberately choose to stand at the urinal. There's no one else there. You start and just notice how easy it is to go to the urinal. You couldn't care less if people are there or not. And then imagine a few days go by. Maybe you go to a different restaurant, also eat and drink. You need to go to the toilet. Imagine going to the toilet and again choosing the urinal over the cubicle. And this time there's one or two people there, and yet you still feel just as relaxed as you would if you were entirely on your own, in your own home. It's just effortless for you to go to the toilet here. Any thoughts that you start guessing what other people are thinking, you've got the ability to turn the volume all the way down, to take a deep breath in, and then on that outward breath, just relax all the tension, particularly in your bladder, your pelvic floor muscle. And in doing so, notice that just going to the toilet is as easy as swallowing food. Effortlessly easy. Feels relaxing. Because when you really need to go to the toilet, isn't it a release to just let that go? And I want you to imagine that these beliefs, this anxiety that you've been holding on to, now represents all those things that are waste. You don't need these beliefs anymore. You don't need to hold on to this idea that you can't eat around other people. And I want you to imagine those beliefs, those thoughts, those memories are now urine in your bladder. I want you to imagine you're standing at the urinal, and as you go to the toilet, feel that you are releasing those beliefs, seeing them drain away. And doesn't it feel good to have all of those things that have been causing you so much stress and strain, just have them all drained away now? And when every last drop has drained away, just let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And what you're left with is a new identity. A new identity that when you're relaxed, all these things are easy. That when it comes to food, when you chew your food and eat slowly, not only is it better and healthier for you, but you get to enjoy your food even more. How can you detect the flavors if you're either eating too fast or not eating at all? You now have unlocked a future of more pleasure, more relaxation, more calmness and a quieter mind. And then find yourself back there on that hill with that big picnic, and every animal has turned into a person and they're all joining you for that giant picnic. You're happy to share the food, and notice that you feel so relaxed eating that food. You're chewing it well, you're eating it slowly, but you're enjoying that food. And the fact that there's other people there simply means that you're enjoying it even more. That's right. When your unconscious mind is willing to update all beliefs, thoughts, and ideas about what you're capable of, in the same way that your phone might update its operating system every few months, that when your unconscious mind has updated things as they need to be, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And in doing so, a door has opened into your future, a future of your choosing. As you walk through the door, you find yourself sat in a chair, listening to my voice, feeling 100% firmly in the present, feeling all normal sensations returning to your arms and legs. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle those fingers, wiggle those toes, get a sense that you're in your own physical body at the present time as I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.